Gyimah.
Yeah. The member for Huddersfield decided to give us a short history lesson. He reminded the House of the debate on tuition fees here in 2004. That bill passed by 5 votes. Now, what he didn't say to us was during that debate, we had the same apocalyptic messages that we've heard in this chamber today. The issue then was fees going from £1,000 to £3,000. Now, no one here on this side of the House is saying with relish that we ought to increase fees. But it is important to know that after those debates, 6 years on, what we have is 45% of people going to university and 200,000 of people who want to, who can't. So what he should have done is told us that, yes, we were worried at the time, but actually a lot of the worries proved unfounded. And can I develop my argument, please? And I listened to the Secretary of State's argument, and like the fact that he has wrestled with his conscience, he's flirted with the graduate tax, and he finally came to a decision that the fairest policy proposal is a graduate contribution. And that is in stark contrast to the other side of the House, who have said to us that they had the fairest and most balanced solution to the student problem. No, they didn't. What is really unfair about the university system they have left us is that there are so many people for whom the costs outweigh the benefits for going to university today. And that is why graduate unemployment is at 6% when it shouldn't be there. So what we've got to do... I'll take your point.
I thank the Honourable Gentleman for giving way. The point about today's debate is that we are having this astronomical rise in fees because of the 80% cut in the teaching grant. This is an assault on the entire ethos of the British university, with what we're dealing with today.
The real test of whether or not your policies work is the outcome, what came out of it. And what is coming out of the system that you left us with is lots of students coming out of university unable to find jobs, with employers telling them their degrees are not worth the paper they are written on. Can I develop my argument, please? No, can I carry on? Now, why is that important? That is important because unless we understand the outcomes we want out of our university, the whole debate about fees is totally out of context. Now, I started looking at this as a skeptic, and I adopted the view that maybe what we need is to roll back. Let's go back to a system where fewer people went to university, where maybe we could go back to a system where we had grants, and that would be better. And maybe we'll be able to charge less. But the truth is, higher participation in higher education is here to stay, and that is good. And that is, so what we've got to do is we've got to work out how we can continue to fund high participation in higher education, how we can ensure that our universities remain world-class, and how we can ensure that my experience at university, which is that if your parents cannot contribute, then you are really stuck, refuses to be a key factor in the equation. Now, my honourable friend from Brigham Grove mentioned that someone's mother is worried that she can't fund her daughter's education. And I think he is right to raise that concern, because a lot of people feel they're going to have dip their hands into their pockets to pay the fees. But what this policy does more than anything else, it shifts the burden from parents. You pay when you've graduated and when you're benefiting from it. Can I finish, please? And what no one has said here, and what everyone has omitted, no thanks, what everyone has omitted to say is that when people graduate, they earn about 100,000 more than people who don't graduate. So there is a benefit from graduating.
Thank you, Madam Deputy. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Of course, though, the situation we will be in is that it will be working-class families who are least able to support their children at university with the additional costs, and that was the point I was making.
If there is any lie that is being perpetuated in this debate, it is that somehow there are working class children who want to go to university who can't get to university. The truth is, can I finish, please? The truth is, our education system is so bad that for a lot of people, a lot of underprivileged kids, the whole concept of university, the whole concept is just simply academic. No. So, can I just to develop my argument. So not only have they... So let's look at this policy in very simple terms. When I went to university, if someone had said to me, Sam, if you want to be able to improve your life, I will give you money to be able to go and do that. And when you finish, only come back to me if you found a job. I'm not going to charge you any interest unless you're earning over a certain amount of money, but I want you to improve your life, so go ahead and do so. I would have bitten their hand off. And if we're going to be responsible in this debate, no thanks. If we're going to be responsible in this debate, then what we've got to do is actually explain the policy rather than trade the same political points that we traded 6 years ago that have proved to be unfounded. Now, we've also seen that... No, thanks. We've also seen... We've also seen the old class warfare notion revamped again this week. And I've seen mentioned somewhere that Harvard has better access than some of our higher education institutions. What someone omitted to mention in that article is that Harvard charge huge fees, and that is how they fund access. Now, I'm not saying that we want to go the way of Harvard, but what I'm saying is that there is a way to have high participation and fees and still make sure that the least advantaged make it. But it can only happen not just with fees. We need to reform our education system in total. And I'm glad that the Secretary of State has mentioned, for example, further education colleges getting more involved in the delivery of higher education. I'm pleased that 40% of students are part-time students who had to fund themselves previously, but now have access to funding through the current policy proposal we've got. I'm also pleased that the Secretary of State mentioned that we are going to help people with actually making the investment decision. Which university do I go to? Which courses actually lead to employment? Which courses are actually going to benefit me? Am I ever going to see my tutors? Those are the things that drive quality in the education system. And so what we are talking about today is not just, yes, the motion is purely about fees, but it is one part of an entire package on higher education reform. And rather than play politics, I think we've got to look at the whole package before we cast judgment on it. No? I'll give way.
I thank the honourable gentleman for finally giving way. Would he not accept that for students from poorer backgrounds, the huge debt that they could now face will act as a greater disincentive not to go to university than it would for students from more affluent backgrounds?
Here, here.
40 seconds.
The truth is, under our current system, it's the middle classes that benefit the most. Those people you're defending are not getting to university. What we need to do is to reform the system so that for everyone, university is not 3 years on campus that costs that much money, that there are more options for people to get to university over time. Now, Tony Blair gave an aspirational target of 50% to university. And I actually like that aspiration. And I am glad that with this policy, we can continue to drive aspiration forward. The past is not right because there was no social mobility utopia in the past. Now the present is letting students down because they are not getting jobs.
Time is up.